All right. Welcome back to another episode of Buzz Beat. This is Richie. I'll be joined by Brian today. We've actually got our final installment of our film rewind series before we turn the page over to the new season. Looking back on a game from Mark Williams. We've done this before, so if you haven't really seen or heard these episodes that we've done one on Terry Rozier against the Bucks. We've done one on PJ Washington and his career high against the Thunder. And then we also had one where LaMelo Ball had a near triple double against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And most of these games, I think outside the Terry Rozier game and even the one today, is going to be a game that goes down to the wire. So it should be pretty cool. Brian, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Richie. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I mean, it's raining here in Charlotte, but I'm enjoying the fall weather. That's always my favorite season. It's football season.
Yeah.
I just like it a whole lot more, and especially with how hot our summer was here.
Yeah, it
Anything feels like fall right now.
yeah,
So
it was yeah, obviously the last like 2.5 months in the Carolinas have been pretty unbearable from a heat and humidity standpoint. And so really Friday was like the first day that felt like fall here, which was nice. And yeah, it's been like enjoying little EPL and I guess after the international break, but enjoyed some EPL this weekend. And yeah, kind of like I don't know, I've been enjoying, checking in on some college football here and there too. And I don't think the Panthers are going to provide a ton of success this season, but they at least seem to be like, I don't know. I think with Bryce Young, they're like they got like the starter piece here.
yeah,
We'll see where we'll see where things go from there. But yeah, got outside a lot the last couple of days, and hopefully between when we finish this today and when the rain leaves Charlotte and comes up to Raleigh, I'll have some time to get outside for a little bit this afternoon.
yeah, exactly. And you're right about the Panthers. At least you got Bryce Young to at least get tuned in for. But
Yeah, yeah,
we talked about this last week through text. Like we're just ready to get ourselves hurt again just watching this team, and
yeah. I
um,
mean,
it's gonna be
that was
another like 500 season. Well, I guess you can't have a 500 season with a 17 game
yeah.
schedule, but it's
Can't
it's
do
gonna be
it.
about that.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Unless they could like, yeah, I guess they can't do it. Yeah, those texts were going out just before kickoff last week, and then what I saw last week did not change my opinion of where the season's headed. But I mean, it seems like they got the guy at quarterback, so
Yeah.
that's something.
That's a pretty important position. So we are going to go ahead and get started with this. Mark Williams against the Miami Heat. This happened back on February 25th, and it was a very good game of his. He had 18 points, 20 rebounds, and I think 7 offensive rebounds. Now, obviously, these clips are going to be a little bit of a mixture of defense and offense, but we're not going to sit here and watch his 20 rebounds, which is maybe part of some of the clips with the defensive stops or the offensive putbacks, but we will go ahead and play clip number one here. And as always, you'll watch it one time through and we can break it down afterwards. So, what we've got here is our first defensive clip of the game, and it's very early 2-2, 10-14 left in the first quarter. You've got a high pick and roll here with Tyler Hero handling the ball. Bam is setting the screen. It's spaced. So Mark has, got a big responsibility here to cover a lot of ground. And Bam sets it's almost like a flat ball screen. I mean, it
Mhm.
doesn't really get a ton of contact, but when you think about Mark Williams, 90% of the time he's a traditional drop big, and in this situation, he is doing just that, trying to buy time for Terry Rozier to come back into the picture. And as you let it play out, Hero does get all the way to the rim, misses it. But I think that Mark's presence bothers him just enough to force this miss and get the defensive rebound here. And the one thing that I do like about this play, because he has a lot of space to kind of cover, and you've got Bam obviously rolling too and getting into his space, he does a good job of not necessarily committing to Tyler Hero, but also showing him, hey, I'm here, but I'm also going to take away this angle of the pass that you could make to Bam. So he doesn't prevent him from getting to the rim by any means, but also he's trying to make sure that he's not out of the picture with Bam Adebayo. But as he gets closer, I mean, really, the length versus hero here is always going to be in favor of Mark Williams. So he kind of stays in striking distance of both players and affects the shot here, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is you said it with Williams. He certainly this year showed some versatility with different schemes guarding pick and roll, but some switch, play up to the level a little bit more. Hard hedge, blitz at times, but for the most part, he's in the drop, or if they're icing side ball screens, he's in kind of a de facto drop too. And you touched on it, like him being able to be kind of in two places at one time by taking good initial position, using his length, and then bothering a shot at the rim. Tyler Hero is like a good pick and roll creator, right? Like he's a good pick and roll scorer by the numbers. I think this play does highlight some of his limitations, like not an elite finisher at the rim. Maybe Kevin Love is like, I know there's a lot of traffic there, but like Kevin Love is open, but like there's no way, he's getting this pass there. JT Thor drops down, he tags Bam on the roll. In Rozier's in the paint, LaMelo's kind of crashing in from the low corner too. But on this drop, I feel you kind of also see the like, I mean, it's obviously it's not like a switch, but it almost becomes like a little one of those little like veer switches where like Rozier kind of like ends up peeling off,
Yeah,
and kind of like going back to Bam. Thor's there too, but just nice overall from Williams. And I think one of the impressive parts at the end, with him maybe influencing or altering or whatever, however you want to define it, the hero miss at the rim, is that one of the things that Williams, who had a very nice rookie season, like on both ends of the floor, but one of the things that, like, when he occasionally got himself in a little bit of trouble, it would be just like when he would leave his feet, like he'd be a little too eager to come over and block a shot, or you could hit him with a pump fake. And instead here, like, he has like a significant size and reach advantage over Hero. So it's, he can be comfortable staying on the floor and still contesting or whatever. But I don't know. It's overall like the fundamentals of this are very nice from Williams. And then with his size and length, that's really where you get like kind of the special, like, to occupy multiple spots at the same time. Sort of like, I mean, Bam does that a lot for Miami, depending on what scheme they're in. But obviously, he's not the same size as Williams. So pretty basic. I mean, you're going to see Williams guard a million of these kinds of screens this season, and every season from here on out. But like, this is the stuff, like I think this is the kind of activity you want to see from him. And look, maybe I don't know. Play the clip out one more time, actually, if you don't mind, and let's see where. I mean, I guess you could, like, this is one of those things where he can just sort of like trust his length and just
right.
let him, come into the picture here. He doesn't need to like totally like cut off the rim, because he can let Hero get to the restricted area and then contest. Maybe you can't do that with everyone driving. And as regulators mentioning here in the comments, does this coverage change if Bam could hit a three? Yeah, I think it would. It doesn't mean that like the Hornets would necessarily wouldn't play drop coverage here, but instead of Bam rolling and JT Thor being able to come in and help inside the lane to tag, if Bam pops here and is open, he's going to be open on a three. Well, Thor then is the guy that gets like put on the spot, right?
Right.
It's like, is he switching all the way out, or more likely he's probably just going to stunt and take like a hard step or two in the direction of Bam, and then hopefully try to buy Williams a second, to get back out there and contest. But like, yeah, that's the, think about the 2-man game with Jamal Murray and Jokic in Denver. Like, they stress defenses so much because Jokic he can roll, he can short roll, but he can also pop. And then with his shooting and his passing, it stresses all of those weak side coverages and rotations. So yeah, it would make a huge difference. Bam's obviously like a great roller, but if he could pop and really sort of like challenge your coverages a little bit, that would make this, more difficult to cover. And Charlotte would have to consider a switch. They'd have to, and again, Thor, or if they weren't switching, Williams would have to cover more ground to get back out into the pop.
Yeah.
think about what JT Thor's responsibility is on the weak side, like most likely, again, he'll have to stunt and just sort of like take a couple of steps out. Or if Bam's just, catching and lifting, then Thor's got to get up there and try to like contest it a little bit too. So Thor would be the guy that would really be put on the spot if Bam could shoot and the Hornets were in the same coverage here.
Yeah, especially because Terry Rozier is having to recover. So it's not like Mark Williams can just switch right back out to Bam out here if he's going to pop into the space. And I'm not sure if like Hero's complaining that he missed it or he's like upset that he got fouled, but I don't really see much of a foul there. And so it could just be frustration there, but pretty straight up and down there from Mark Williams. Maybe he gets him with the lower body a little bit, but they're not going to call that.
Yeah.
Did you see that behind the back pass there from Mark Williams to LaMelo? Look at that.
Well, let me see here at the end. Look at Williams.
Look how smooth this is.
Oh, look at that. Huh? There you go. Yeah, he's the next great passing five in the NBA. It also, this is one of those plays watching it too. I mean, I watched a lot of the FIBA World Cup this summer too. Like, it's one of those, it does make it seem like at some point maybe Team USA should consider Mark Williams, because that when the ball takes the second like bounce on the rim there, like Williams could easily just go up and like bat that off, under FIBA rules. And I guess like Walker Kessler was sort of like playing that role for Team USA this summer anyways, albeit sort of like a deeper bench role. But just the other sort of like loose thought that popped into my mind.
All right, we've got another defensive clip here. Charlotte's up 10-4 about midway through the first quarter, and you've got Butler, who's ISOing JT Thor on the right block here. And, outside of Bam, like everyone's kind of spaced out. Bam's slowly getting out of the paint there. Mm-hmm. And Mark is actually guarding Love, who is in the left corner. And Mark does a good job of like getting his feet out of the paint so that the defensive 3 seconds resets right there. And his timing on this help, I mean, it probably is just coincidental, is very, very good, because once when Jimmy turns his back and he doesn't know necessarily that Mark Williams is coming. So he spins baseline and Mark is able to get the block here. And I think what's crazy about this, and obviously I think you probably noticed this too, is he gets this block on the way down. Like he is not timing it perfectly on the actual block, but he does time it perfectly on the way that he comes over and helps. Just the length. And I think that Jimmy turns and realizes, okay, I've got two lengthy defenders on me. Even if I do spin baseline and get around Thor, now there's Mark Williams with the block there and another rebound and gets the Hornets out in transition. So you talked about on the previous play, Brian, where he just uses his length to his advantage. He doesn't have to leave his feet against Tyler Hero, and he shouldn't. Like, he doesn't need to. As a help side rim protector, obviously you're going to see that way more often. And the fact that he's able to jump, make sure that Jimmy fades a little bit and still gets the block, very impressive play here. And I believe this is the last defensive clip we have of the 8. But nothing more to it than just, his length taken over and able to do it on the way down.
Yeah, I mean, again, special size, special reach from Mark Williams, and he's got terrific instincts and sort of like want to be a backline rim protector and helper. This is the thing he does best. Is be like a help side shot blocker. Like that's what he does here. And look, Jimmy's a terrific isolation post up player. Part of that is his ability to draw fouls. So like, I actually give Williams and JT Thor. Thor gets pushed back a little bit. I mean, like Butler's able to get this, fairly, but even when he's like making his movies, it's not like he's like quite in the restricted area. Right. And I just think JT Thor does a pretty nice job on this play, like staying solid, using his length. Like Butler doesn't like stuff him underneath the basket and then lay it up, and that allows Williams to come over and not just make a contest, but block the shot. So I think Thor, I would give him like a +1 for this possession or whatever too. But yeah, this is also like, it was funny going back through this game, which took place, I think February 25th, like late February.
Right.
And just thinking about the last couple of times, like the last few months of we saw Miami, just a totally different Heat team, in the playoffs with the 3-point shooting. And, this possession's a little bit stuck in the mud here with a, post up for Jimmy at like 14 seconds. But yeah, really nice play help side by Williams. And again, he can do special stuff like that because of his reach, his timing, and yeah, I just think his sort of like feel for blocking shots is quite good.
Agreed. And so this game, as I was going through the clips, I think a lot of them happened towards like the end of the game. So we're going to jump to the second quarter, but some of the later clips come down the stretch for Mark Williams. And so this is where we're going to start to do our offensive side. Charlotte at this point is up 48-39 here in the second quarter. You've got some horns action where it actually looks like LaMelo is going to use Hayward's screen over here on the left. So he kind of goes left a little bit, but then switches it over to the right side. And I think this helps the fact that, Gabe Vincent is already behind the action. And
Mm-hmm.
so Gabe thinks that this screen's going to come right up here with Hayward. But then as he does the crossover, you've got this other screener up here, Mark Williams. And Mark Williams was obviously benefited a lot from LaMelo. And I think these two are a good pair for seasons to come. But I will say this, like obviously LaMelo makes Mark better. Like 9 times out of 10, it's typically a LaMelo setting up, Mark Williams, and there's nothing really that the defense could do. But I think the fact that Mark slips this screen quickly, knowing that Zeller's got to help out, and the way that Zeller realizes that Vincent's behind the action, like he doesn't set the screen really. He doesn't really make contact with Vincent. He just gets downhill as quickly as possible, and
Mm-hmm.
you know that Melo's going to turn this corner and try to get as far as he can, and then just obviously this is just lobs it up for Mark Williams and allow him to use his length. But there was a great connection between these two. They didn't play a ton of minutes together,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that LaMelo was Mark's leading assist man at the rim with 21 assists at the rim. I believe they played close to 300, 350 minutes together. So, but nothing like too crazy about this clip, the horns clip. But I do like how Mark slips it quickly to make sure that he can get to the rim without really anyone coming over to help.
Yeah, back to the start of this. If you pause it at the top here, like
Oh, I'll go back.
when yeah, no, you're good. We'll wait till it gets back up. But just freeze it right at the top when they're like in the horns look. Like Hayward setting up to the left of LaMelo here. Feel like normally when the Hornets have this kind of look with Hayward being like one of the screen setters, like they're going to get him involved in the action, and they do this
Right.
with PJ too. But often like if he sets this first screen, and let's say like LaMelo uses it and he like strings it out a little bit to his left, like he uses Hayward's screen. He would probably take a dribble or two to his left, and then Hayward would likely come off like a flare from Mark Williams, and that's a way they use to like sort of like ignite different kinds of pick and roll, sort of like movement pick and roll sets. But it could also be like a little bit of like the Hornets also run something we've talked about on here before too called Horns Twist, which would be like if LaMelo used the Hayward screen, he dribbled out a couple times to his left, then Williams would lift up and he would then use the Williams screen coming back to go to his right. And that's like essentially what happens here. I'm just not sure if that's like how they drew it up or if that's sort of like LaMelo freelancing and Williams just like reading the move. Either way, like it's good stuff from those guys. It's also like this is terrible defense from Miami. Like, and I mean, like Bam's not in the game, and like so, the Heat are obviously not the same like defensive force with a replacement center on the court there. But like, you know, as you said, Richie, Williams doesn't even set a screen on Vincent, but Vincent like loses touch with LaMelo. Like he's not attached at all. Zeller's caught in no man's land, and there's no weak side checkout from Hero. And I know it happens kind of quickly or whatever, but like this is Mark Williams slipping a screen and there's just no it's just right to the front of the rim. Like it just does not get any easier than that. That is truly, truly horrific half court pick and roll defense. And there's just Hero just standing there doing literally nothing. So nice. I think again, the freelance likely from LaMelo here is nice. Williams reading that and getting to the front of the rim ASAP. Like again, if you're looking for chemistry between those two guys, I think stuff like this is encouraging. But like Again, this is just pathetic pick and roll defense from my. You've got to do something to take away Williams on the roll. You've got to make LaMelo like finish this on his own or try to like skip it to Rozier. I mean that still
Right.
would be a good possession for the Hornets, right? Like a kick out, open catch and shoot three for Terry. Like that's a great possession for Charlotte. But the best possession is this, like a lob, totally uncontested, a roll and lob for your 7'1" jumping jack center.
I wonder how many dunks there were in this game by Mark Williams. It feels like there were a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lot. A lot of offensive rebounds and a lot of dunks in this game for him.
All right, we'll get to the fourth clip here, and at this point, the Hornets are up 52-41 with a minute 30 left in the first half. This is one of my favorite clips from the bunch here, just because there's a lot to dissect. There's a lot of ways you can look at this. It starts with kind of like an angled ball screen around the slot area, and to be honest, like this is how I would defend this. Like Love jumps, tries to trap this screen, but Mark and Ball like perfectly time this. He slips into the space. And, I get why the Heat would do this because of Ball's range, right? He's a guy that can pull
Yeah.
up distance, and you want to make sure that Mark Williams can make a play out of the short roll. Yes, you've got a 4-on-3 situation. Yes, the Hornets have an advantage here, but this isn't necessarily a wash slipping into space. So once when he gets the ball, I originally think, and I still think to this day, could he have hit JT Thor on this baseline cut? That's something that Mark is going to have to work on his short roll ability, his passing.
Mhm.
Or, in this situation, he just goes up with a little push shot. He misses it pretty badly, but it bounces right back to him, and there's another dunk from Mark Williams. So there's a lot to look at this play. The Heat, like I said, I probably would have done the same thing that they did, get the ball out of his hands, make sure that Mark Williams can do something in this type of situation. I do think that he can see over, I believe that's Martin right there, just make
It
a pass
is.
to JT
Yeah.
Thor. But I don't know if that's fully in his capabilities yet. We've seen a little bit of it here and there, is short roll passing, but a little hard, a little hard on the shot there, but gets the ball right back, and one of his 7 offensive rebounds leads to a putback dunk there. So, Love really stands, no chance right here once the ball comes, and it's just like power versus an older, aging veteran there.
Yeah. I mean, look, respect to Kevin Love, like Hall of Fame player and one of the best rebounders of his generation, but like Mark Williams like he destroyed him in this game on the glass. Like
Yes.
Williams had 7 offensive rebounds, and a lot of them came like with him just like a foot higher in the air than Kevin Love to get the shot. I agree with you on that first pass. Like Thor is such an interesting guy too. He loves these like quick baseline cuts, like in part because it feels like he's still toggling between like, should I cut or should I be stationary in the corner and just like wait for the kick out? But since he's not like a knockdown shooter yet, that like baseline weak side corner cut is sort of like one of the best things he's able to do. And he does a nice job like reading I think it's a nice job for him to collapse in and cut. That pass is maybe there right on the initial touch from Mark Williams. But as you'll see, Jimmy Butler is, in predator mode, like looking to take that pass away too. So it's like, if he puts that on a bounce, I think Jimmy's going to intercept it or at least deflect it. And even if it's not on a bounce, I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy's able to recover. But like maybe initially, the other thought would be like if Thor sticks in the corner for a catch and shoot three, then like he's there for the kick out. We've talked, I think since Summer League last year, Richie, about Williams on the short roll. Because it was something he just did not do at Duke. He didn't have to do it very often, very, very little. And I thought for the most part on these little like he didn't take a ton of them, but on these little like push shots in like the middle of the lane, I thought he showed like some nice touch. Not on this one, but there was a game against Denver. There was one against Denver he did where he sort of like did like a little spinning hook on the short roll. There were just times he showed he showed some touch, which was nice. And he's not a terrible free throw shooter either. So I think there's something to be said for him having, him having some touch. And there was also another game this year where he ran the short roll. PJ Washington was in the dunker spot, and Williams was able to throw. I think it was one of the Dallas games when the Hornets just like ended their season in late March, but he just like was able to see over the top of the help. Like a smaller person came up to help, and Williams was able to see over the top and dump it down to PJ for a layup. That's the other thing. One of the things that pops for me on this play is just how, like, with Kevin Love playing that aggressive pick and roll coverage and coming out to show on LaMelo there. Miami, this is a small lineup in general, but look how small they are on the backside. Like once Williams catches that, like you've got Hero and Martin as like the two low guys with Jimmy trying to track back. So it's like, 6'3", it's 6'3", 6'6", 6'7", and Mark Williams he's 7'1". So all of a sudden they become very small. And so it's no surprise for Williams to try to just go over the top, get it up on the rim, and then go get his own miss. It's just a weird way. It's an indirect way, I guess, for Charlotte to get it to the front of the rim, but inevitably they pretty quickly get the ball to the front of the rim here. So again, it's just highlighted by Williams, I think, showing some nice patience, leaning into his size, and doing so against a team that doesn't have very good size on the court, and especially with their tallest guy, clearly the biggest guy in the court for Miami, him being caught out 25 feet away from the rim. Again, Williams can just play bully ball, get it up on the glass here.
You almost wonder too. I don't know if this was going through his mind, but because Kevin Love was the big in this situation and he was behind him, maybe he was a little bit more aggressive and trying to get the basket, and he didn't necessarily care to look for Thor here. So maybe he kind of knew that. But yes, there it is, another putback dunk. And we'll get ahead and go with clip number 5 here. This is midway through the third quarter. Brian, would you classify this as pistol, or do you consider pistol more of like a 3-man game? Because when I first saw this, it's like a little step up screen by Hayward, which you would normally see in pistol, but I think Thor is the other guy that's involved here, but he's not really involved. He's on the opposite side. So is this pistol to you or no?
Yeah, I would refer to this as pistol. I mean, pistol takes a lot of different ways, but it can look a lot of it. There's countless little like variations and tweaks out of it. I think often when the Hornets get like a third guy in the action, after that step up screen, you'll often after that like guard or guard wing step up screen, you'll often see the 5, which in this case would have been Mark Williams, come over and set like an empty side ball screen, right, for LaMelo. Like that's something you see them do a lot. Richards does that a lot. Williams does that a lot. Or they will do this with Hayward as well, where it's just like if he comes up, he sets the screen for LaMelo, he gets the switch, then Hayward will go into the post, or PJ Washington will go into the post, or Miles Bridges will go into the post, and then whomever the trailer is, they can also look to play high-low from out of that, right? Because if the person guarding LaMelo is a 1, I mean, in this case, it's Jimmy Butler, so that's not like a you get that switch, you're not trying to post that one up. But if Gabe Vincent was guarding him and Gordon Hayward gets Gabe Vincent to switch onto him, well, maybe that's something you do try to take that. You try to take that, or you get Hero to switch onto him, whatever. Like maybe you'll look to take that matchup into the post, and you can play high-low out of that. I mean, the Hornets could also like have had, LaMelo throw the ball ahead to Gordon Hayward and have Hayward pitch it back to him as LaMelo's. Yeah. That's like to me that is like classic vintage sort of like pistol 21 action. But these like step up ball screens, I consider that as well. And they do get the switch, but this is one of my favorite parts about this play is like, this should not be like no side of the switch should be good news for Charlotte.
Yes.
Like,
I mean,
this is a Jimmy Bam switch. Yeah. That's terrifying. So like, I give a lot of credit here. Like, I mean, just an awesome play by LaMelo. I mean, he's sick, obviously. Like, he's an incredibly talented player, but like size up Bam, little offbeat move, turn the corner, collapse the paint, draw help, and then a really, really nice pass in traffic. Clean pass, and Williams does a nice job sort of like clearing from the dunker spot, gets to the front of the rim. And then I just think the catch from Williams here is really nice. Like, so again, most credit here to LaMelo busting up a switch against Bam, which like, I mean, the Heat are an incredible defensive team. They have been for years. And like a big part of that is like Bam's ability to switch and be a nightmare. He's ruined a lot of Hornets games the last couple of years with his ability to switch, and for LaMelo to just cook that, get it into the paint, collapse it, and hit Williams for a dunk is, I mean, it's classic, star guard and, power big guy basketball. But I think for the first 2 years of LaMelo's career, when we talked about wanting him to have a hammer like this, wanting him to have like a vertical spacer, a guy he could throw the ball to on drives, like, I mean, this isn't like a lob, obviously, but like this
Right.
is what we're talking about, right? Or what everyone, not just on this pod, but anyone that was following or covering the team, like this is what everyone wanted, was for them to have just a guy he could hit here, right here, and let that guy just like finish off plays. And as much as we respect Cody Zeller and Mason Plumlee certainly like got plenty of these like spoon fed looks too. Like Williams is just like athletically and size wise a different beast than those guys.
Yeah, it's the funny thing is the first thing I put in my notes here, like this is probably more of a LaMelo clip than it is a Mark Williams clip. But to your point, I will say that I like how Mark Williams moves a little bit more centrally here to help this pass window out. And to be honest, like I don't even know if like Kevin Love needs to help out in this situation.
No.
It's easy to say that now and look at his reaction afterwards as if like, hey, who's helping me? Because I just helped off of Mark
Yeah.
Williams here.
It should be noted this was pretty early, I want to say, in Love's tenure with Miami. Like I think he had probably like this is late February. He'd probably been bought out like not by Cleveland and ended up in Miami not long before this. It's also worth noting too, this game comes like 2 weeks after they traded Plumlee, which was also right around the All-Star break. So like this is just very early in Williams' tenure getting to be like the starter for the Hornets, basically
Yeah.
at the 5.
But so yeah, I think like I said, this is probably more of a LaMelo clip, and he knows what he has to do in this situation. Bam obviously is a great switch defender, and he forces him baseline and doesn't give him much of a room to shoot the ball. But because Love comes over and helps, Mark Williams is able to create a little bit of space here essentially, and LaMelo just finds the space like always,
Mhm.
and yep, goes up for the dunk. And yeah, the reason I didn't know if it was pistol. Go ahead.
You're just gonna say once again, like Tyler Hero just doing nothing as a help defender on this play too. Like just, I mean, like just nowhere to be found. I mean, he's obviously like a very talented offensive player. And I think like most of his like defensive frustrations come when he has to like guard, sort of like power wings in the playoffs or whatever. But like a couple of these clips we've shown, he's just been like missing in action in terms of help defense. Cause like even JT Thor cuts right to the front of the rim. Like, I mean, Hero does nothing to help anywhere on this possession. So, not that I would necessarily blame him for this one, but it's not like he's it's not like he's making plays outside of his responsibilities either as a defender.
Right. Yeah, we definitely see some trends as we go through
Yeah.
these. All right. Next clip here, clip number 6. Third quarter, midway through, 71-62. Let it play out one time through. All right, so Charlotte is moving the ball here in semi-transition. Let me pull that clip back up. And it's funny. I feel like Mark Williams subtly kind of signals LaMelo to go left, and I think that's probably where they're setting it up anyway. But he kind of has like this little hand motion to, hey,
Mhm.
come this way, because it could be a flat ball screen, but then he turns his hips to make LaMelo come left. He catches the ball off this pass from LaMelo, and he actually does a good job of gathering it low here to make sure that Tyler Hero, doesn't necessarily swipe the ball away from him. And this isn't the most fluid, I wouldn't say, like, clip from Mark. Like, I'm not sure that he does travel, but the way that he kind of chops his feet, I think maybe one could argue, like, okay, this looks a little bit wonky, but he kind of keeps his pivot foot down, turns over his right shoulder, and hits that left hook shot. Um, I'm not gonna lie, Brian. When I saw this, I didn't think this was falling. Like, this just didn't look so fluid to me that I thought this was gonna be a miss. But he kind of makes something out of nothing, even though
Yeah.
that his feet are a little bit choppy in this situation. So there's nothing more to this clip that I would want to point out, but just another way that he scores, because I think that we saw like a lot of dunks in these first 5 clips. So just having a left hand hook shot is a little bit different here.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, people are saying it in the comments, but it is a patient shot by Mark. And nice touch on the little like spinning lefty kind of half hook or however you want to describe this. But this is good stuff from him, man. Miami puts two on the ball with Jimmy in rear view pursuit. Bam's like kind of below. I mean, he's below the level of the screen, but he ends up sort of like popping out onto LaMelo, and Mark's open in the pocket, like right in the middle of the lane. And it's cool to see the trust with LaMelo to throw it to him. I mean, I think like this is the kind of stuff that this offensively that I was like most worried about Williams coming into his rookie season, and sort of like wanting to see what it would look like. And again, didn't get a ton of opportunities, but I thought for the most part he slightly outperformed my expectations for him when it came to these types of things. Part of the reason I really like Jalen Duren in the 2022 draft was that, like, I think Duren reeks of a guy that's going to can make plays in those pockets of space and be a connector, whether it's a short roll floater or a runner, or he's going to catch it and then kick it out to Terry Rozier for a three. Like, I thought Duren's a guy that like projects to be really, really good on those types of things. But overall, I thought Williams was a little bit better than I thought he was going to be. And I think I've said this on every clip so far, but like you can just see like Miami, even with Love and Bam on the floor at the same time, like, and obviously Bam is, an incredible center. And like on some nights, he's the best defender in the world, possibly. But like, Williams' size and reach, he can just play over the top of these guys. So he does a nice job, taking care of the ball in space, spinning, and knowing that like no one's going to block that hook shot, right? Like he can play over the top of his team. So good stuff on the short roll here by Mark Williams, but I do think he benefits some from just like, like there's just not a lot of size and length. Like the backside of this play is like Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo, like he doesn't have to worry about, having a Jalen McDaniels type guy, like with that kind of like length and reach on the backside, swiping at the ball or getting in passing lanes or whatever. But yeah, again, love this kind of stuff from Williams and LaMelo, especially.
It's funny you mentioned Bam and Love. I would love to know like the matchup data, not that it's always accurate on NBA.com, like how he did when Love was his primary defender versus Bam as his primary defender.
Yeah.
See, so all right, we'll let it play one more time through, and then we'll get to the final two clips of the game as it gets towards the end. Here's the little hook shot. All right, we're going to get into clip number 7 here, and this is late in the game. And this one, like the previous one, it's Mark hitting something other than a dunk, and you got LaMelo coming downhill, putting pressure on the defense, and Love, who is defending Mark Williams, helps off of Mark to cut off this drive. And this is another finish to me that looks a little bit awkward like the previous one, but to me, he finishes it with a little bit more control and fluidity than the previous clip, in my opinion. And it looks as if Mark is trying to dunk it at first, like he almost goes off 2 feet, but then probably thinks better of it and turns it into a little scoop shot, adjusts midair there for a little finger roll. And obviously Bam is in the restricted area here, but I do love the fact that like he realizes I can't just barrel through Bam. Like I've got to go more vertical than like through him. So I don't think that it could have been called a charge because of the fact that he was in the restricted area. But regardless, like just changing it midair, having a little bit more control, like you said on the previous clip, using his length over Bam to just kind of scoop it over him. The one thing that I do wonder, like, what if I just feel like Love, I hate to keep banging on Love, but I wonder if Bam was in Love's shoes in this situation, would he do a better job of maybe taking away the pass that LaMelo has here?
Yeah, definitely.
So
Definitely.
that's what I'm getting at in the previous comment I made. Like with Love guarding Mark Williams, it just felt like he feasted on Love, his power, his strength, like his tenacity. You just saw it. Then obviously as like a switch defender or a defender out in space, Bam's got those angles covered a ton better.
This by the way is like an interesting closing lineup. Like PJ didn't play in this game, right? So you've got Hayward as like the de facto 4 plus the 3 guards of LaMelo, DSJ, and Terry Rozier plus the rookie center. Like, I'm guessing this lineup outside of this game probably didn't play all that much together this season, but you can see how it fits. And you can also see like Miami toggling the matchups a little bit, where they're probably thinking by this point, well, our help side coverage is, regardless of like how we've been guarding screens, we've just been small on the backside, right? And that's something we've talked about on this, where it's been it's been Hero or Martin or whomever, and then like Williams has either played over the top of those guys or he's just like rolled right to the front of the rim and had his way. And here you've got Bam on Hayward, right?
Right.
And you got Love as the screen defender. And so that allows I think the thought process for Miami here is like, oh, this allows Bam to roam and for him to be the helper. Now all of a sudden he gets to be the low man guy here. So we got 2 on the ball. So when they throw it back to Williams, well, he needs to see more size. It's not going to be him playing over the top of Kevin Love because, again, as you just noted, he was feasting on that matchup. Bam is awesome. But what Bam does best as a defender is not like protect the rim, right? Like, he's as athletic and as incredible as he is, and he can be like an intimidating backline presence. Like, he's not like a monster shot blocker, and he's also probably on the smaller end for a starting center in the NBA. And so you can just see Williams able to take his time and go right over the top, and finish without having to worry about this shot being, sent back at him. So impressive stuff from Williams here. Nice touch too, again.
Yes. And obviously, this is a clutch basket here by Mark Williams. And we'll get to another bucket that was very instrumental in the way that this game played out. This is the final clip that we're going to get in here. Charlotte is up 3 points. We've got just under a minute to go on the clock. We got Rozier trying to hit a dagger corner 3. He gets a good look, like he's fairly open. But Mark gets the offensive rebound. I think I mentioned this before, but they had 7 offensive he had 7 offensive rebounds, which was a season high. 20 rebounds was a season high as well. No surprise there. But again, we see who he's matched up against. A little bit of flair, a little bit of emotion. I think there's some screenshots out there, some photographs of him, getting this excited after this dunk. And that's the one that we have as our promo picture as well. But just the fact that he, gets this dunk this late in the game and just has that that effort trying to get to the ball. He locates the ball off the miss. And like I mentioned, just too much for Love in this game. And this is a perfect way to kind of to end this series here on clip number 8. Just it exemplifies the whole game for him.
Yeah, power. Just again, he was an excellent offensive rebounder this season. He was at Duke. And just going back, and not just this game alone, I've recently rewatched a couple other Hornets games from mid to late in the season. I recently watched one of the Chicago games, and I watched the Houston game, one of the Rockets games, and like he just gets a lot of putback buckets too. Like having this guy obviously as like a screen and dive guy is huge, but he's going to create these, like, I mean, Nick Richards does this too with the second unit. But the Hornets really do have 2 tough offensive rebounders in their center rotation, and maybe 3 depending on what happens with James Nagy. But anyways, like, you love this stuff from Williams. It's just like classic center stuff, beat your guy, get to the rim, create a second chance opportunity, and like finish with authority. Like, I think one of the things that he struggled with occasionally at Duke was like power finishes without needing to like put the ball down to go back up. And so I think one of the things that is pretty encouraging about this play is he's able to catch it and just like pop straight back up, right? He doesn't have to put the ball back down and give Hero a chance to maybe swipe at it, or maybe give Bam like a half a tick to come back in and like block this from behind, like boom, straight up. Like, he's a great second jump athlete, but even more than that, like the lower body strength, which is something that like he's going to get better at. Like he needs to become stronger. The lower body, that will really help him out in terms of like post defense, which I think he was pretty good with this season. But that'll help him out even further. But just like that's just really good, like vintage center, or like vintage, like in like the modern center kind of look. You know what I mean? But love that from Williams. He was awesome in this game, and like this was the best game of his rookie year, most likely. But he didn't have too many bad games either. Like he had a really nice rookie season, man. He really did. Like the 2022 draft, as much as that night was confusing, odd, yeah, frustrating, seemingly like just not a great use of having 2 top 15 picks. I guess one of those picks, eventually turned into Nick Smith a year later, but which we like, we like Nick Smith as a prospect, but like the disappointments or the frustrations or the confusions that night didn't come from the selection of Williams. Like you knew the Hornets got a good player with the 15th pick with Mark Williams, and it felt like this season it was like agonizing to like have to like sit through like Mason Plumlee like high post sets just to be like, God, please, can I see Mark Williams play? And part of it was like Richards played just so well. Like Richards was like one of their best players before he got hurt. And there was no like gimme time for Williams until they moved Plumlee out. But I think one of the things that was awesome about Williams is that like once he got into the rotation, he clearly earned it, and there was not going to be anything you could do to knock him out. Because if I remember correctly, the timing of all of this, like Richards got hurt.
Correct.
Plumlee was still in town. He had not yet been traded to the Clippers at the deadline. And so Plumlee was still the starter, and Williams was playing, like 18, 20 minutes a game as like a backup for him. And even when Richards came back, Richards was just out of the rotation once he was like back and cleared to play because Williams was just playing too well. You couldn't bump him from the rotation. So Charlotte got a really good young center with him. And if you don't mind, could I real quickly just read off like a couple of stats for Williams here real quickly?
Yeah,
these are from a site that I know you're a fan of too, Richie. The B-Ball Index. Who do a really nice job. A bunch of different like advanced metrics covering the NBA. But here's some stats for Williams as it's like interior defense. Again, this is according to the B-Ball Index. In terms of rim deterrence, and I'm not sure what exactly they're using to measure that, but he was in the 70th percentile. Percent of rim shots contested, 95th percentile in the league. Rim contests per 75 possessions, 10.33. That was in the 98th percentile in the NBA. Blocks per 75 possessions, 2.0. 92nd percentile in the NBA. Block rate on contests, 18.9%, 73rd percentile in the NBA. Rim defended field goal percentage versus expected, 77th percentile in the NBA. Rim points saved per 75 possessions, 94th percentile. Rim protection, 84th percentile. Post defense, 87th percentile. And screener rim defense, 97th percentile with an A+ grade. So again, that's just one service that's doing a nice job covering the NBA. But in terms of their advanced defensive interior metrics, Williams did a nice job both protecting the rim, guarding screens, and guarding the post.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everyone joining us live here on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on the audio version as well. Regulator in the comments says, rain, coffee, and buzz beat. What more can you ask for? We agree. Brian, it was good to see you. We always love doing these things. I'm sure this is the last version of the film Rewind, but we might incorporate this throughout the season, but just kind of in a different format. So we will talk to you guys later.